Greetings and good Wednesday morning, April 27th, 2022, third decade of the 21st century. If you're new to my channel, first time watching, here's my quick little preamble. I always mentioned third decade of the 21st century, and I juxtapose that in my own mind and hopefully others, where I want you to think about, depending on your age, where people thought and predicted we would be in the third decade of the 21st century and the things that we'd be talking about and the concepts we'd be exploring. All right, and then compare and contrast what we're talking about today. All right, what is in the mainstream media? What is being shoved in your face and shoved down your throat? All right. That being said, I also started this channel because of my extreme displeasure and distrust with media sources. All right. At the risk of being repetitive, the solution is the problem is the solution. The First Amendment guarantees freedom of the press, freedom of expression, which means the government can't get involved, which means, traditionally speaking, it's supposed to free the press from propaganda. Well, I think the problem is the solution and the solution is the problem. Because now if the press is privately owned, okay, and they're owned by special interest groups with their own socio-political agenda, then they can cherry pick facts, they can cherry pick information, and they can use it to form a story that ultimately supports their preconceived conclusion. And it was my belief that media sources, whether legacy, social, or other, are currently pushing their own socio-political agendas to divide us into camps, red and blue. Whether it's one issue or many, it's literally, here's an issue, you must formulate an opinion, and based on your opinion, you must pick a camp and pitch tent. So I started this channel in opposition to that. The other reason I started this channel is I see a therapist once a week. I'm going to see her again today. And I started it as a form of catharsis and as a way to purge some of my own thoughts and opinions. For what I do for a living, I'm exposed to an audience, and this is why I bring it up. I guess if you want, you can call me an educator. When I'm on the platform, I have a designated script of information I have to give. In that script is zero socio-political agendas. In that script is nothing to do with how I feel about anything or my thoughts and opinions. However, I still have thoughts and opinions. You could call them compulsions, if you will. And if I don't curb my compulsions, I would find myself, wanting to say something. So I see a therapist to try to curb those compulsions. She also encouraged me to do this channel, give myself an outlet where I can, I think and feel and disagree and therefore when I'm in front of the audience, hey everybody, let's talk about this stuff, completely free of any socio-political agenda, just neutral information. So, I also want to encourage other people who do disagree to get involved so that we can prove that we don't have to be red and blue, we don't have to be left and right, that, oh, well, I can see that you're a reasonable human being, I can see that you're a productive member of society, I can see that you have value, we just disagree on the subject. Cool, good for you. Now, why did I go through that entire preamble for a little over 3.5 minutes? Here's why. One of my friends, Miss Sheila, who's gotten involved in my channel and has provided me with some counter thoughts, counter opinions, different perspectives, as well as Miss Stace, which I'm terribly grateful for. One of our subjects that we've been kind of talking about in our little triangle is the stuff in Texas and the stuff in Florida and the don't say gay and whatnot. And Miss Sheila just got done doing a video, and if necessary, I'll put the link in the description so you can go check out her video and see what she has to say on it. She's obviously done a bit more research on it. Essentially, I'm gonna dumb it down a little bit and keep it relatively simple without going and doing the research and the peer-reviewed studies and whatnot. So essentially what we're talking about in Florida is the public school system, where as a parent, as a legit parent, and this is in no way, shape, or form to disparage anybody who's not a parent, okay? As a parent of children who go to the public school system, I need them to learn arithmetic, mathematics. I need them to learn science. I need them to learn history. I need them to learn English/literature. Basically, I need them to learn how to construct a sentence into paragraphs with proper grammar, proper punctuation, proper spelling. Okay? I need them to understand the concepts of reading and comprehension. And anything else that's deemed necessary in the public school atmosphere that's going to make them a productive member of society, whether they join the military, whether they join the workforce, or whether they go to college. Interesting thing about college, college is paid for, and you have public and you have private. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, so I'll try to keep it simple. So, in the public school atmosphere regarding Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis is attempting to push forward legislation that prevents certain socio-political agendas explicitly when it comes to sexual orientation, sexual persuasion, gender identity, etc., on children of a certain age. Based on what's being reported in the media, right? You have a lot of your celebrities and whatnot, and non-celebrity types, gay, because apparently the thought process is in the legislation. It's the Don't Say Gay bill, and as far as my limited understanding, that's not it whatsoever. I'm going to oversimplify this, all right? So I'm putting that disclaimer out right now. I'm going to oversimplify this. Let me start with some back information. It is my current belief that the average person, gay or straight, bi, trans, whatever, the average person just wants to go about their day. That includes teachers. The average teacher just wants to go about their day and just teach regular math, not racial math, not hypersexualized math, just math, 1 + 1. The average teacher just wants to go and teach science, not racial science, not critical race science, not gender-based science, just science. Okay, this is a molecule, this is an atom. Okay, I think I've made my point. I don't need to go over every potential subject. So part of what's being put out there is that there is, and I'm generalizing this, so if you're overly addicted to this particular concept, please don't get hyper offensive on me. Right? I welcome discourse. It's my belief that there is a small group, all right, outside of the average, that want to push certain socio-political agendas, whether they're hyper, whether they're subtle, whether they're nuanced, whatever the case may be. There are people that think math is racist, so there's got to be a new racially sensitive form of math. Forgive me, I don't believe it. I believe math is math. 1 + 1, solve for X. I don't see any particular racial connotation there, but if you believe in that, that's you. I don't believe in any kind of gender persuasion whatsoever. However, I also think at a certain age, certain explicit sexual conversations should not be had. Okay? And I believe that there's a very small minority, call it fringe, all right? Call it less than 10% of, let's say, educators and or people in support of this that are like, yeah, let's talk about 2 moms and 2 dads, and let's talk about gender identity and all of that stuff. If that's a topic near and dear to your heart, cool. I also think that there's a time when it's age appropriate, okay? Now, in the public school atmosphere, it's supposed to be generic, all right? It's supposed to be agreed upon by all parties, which means the majority. And if you fall outside the majority, I apologize. In which case, that's when you need to look for private educational institutions that suit your specific minority need, okay? Whether that's religion, that's why we have a lot of religious-based private schools, all right? And tragically and truthfully, the rich have their own schools because they do. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. According to my therapist, the private school system was developed, or the public school system was developed in the early 1900s because it was in direct response to child labor laws. It was getting children out of the factories and into the school. And if you take them out of the factories, if you take them out of work, what are you going to do with children? Okay, so it's based on her years of study. The public school system was developed in direct response to child labor laws to give children something to do during the working hours when parents were working. In which case, in that sphere, I do believe in what Governor Ron DeSantis is attempting to do. Certain subjects do not need to be in the public school atmosphere. All right? Now, right now, the heavy focus is on popular trending subjects like gender identity and sexual orientation and stuff of that nature. But there's also been some examples, and I understand if you want to make the argument they're being cherry picked. The right wing is cherry picking them, and these are hyper examples that don't fit the norm. My argument there is they are still valid examples. And my argument to that is, again, I'm addressing a very, very small minority, a fringe element that wants to bring this into the public school sphere, where Governor DeSantis and his constituents are like, yes, that has no business. And I'd like to believe that it includes stuff like religion. It includes stuff that most people could agree does not have any business being in the public school atmosphere. This goes back to the video I just made, and it goes back to belief. If the topic is something you're truly passionate about, it's going to create a belief system, in which case it could create a situation like this, in which case we could find ourselves on two different ends of the argument. I wish to avoid it becoming toxic. I wish to avoid it becoming terribly divisive. But I am going to state my opinion. I'm going to state my belief, and I'm going to stand behind it. I do not think at a certain age group these conversations need to be had. I think when it comes to curriculum in general, I do not think this needs to be a part of the curriculum. All right? I think there may be classes, like elective classes, where, like let's say at the high school level, where it may be entertained and it may be explored. However, I think there's a fine line between what's appropriate and what's inappropriate at certain age groups. At the much, much younger age groups, I think things need to be pretty cut and dry. Okay? It is what it is. If a young child has two moms, two dads, if a young child has two parents born one biological way but presenting another biological way, I understand. I understand the need for some nuance. I understand the need for some ambiguity, as in, like, how does a teacher address this? Okay? Conversely, I don't have a response other than my own personal response. Teachers who find themselves of a certain gender identity, certain sexual orientation, perhaps trans, I don't know how to respond, because, and I'll go in a different direction. I'm retired military, okay? According to recent surveys, 0.7% is serving in uniform, 4.3% are veterans, okay? So now that I'm part of the 4.3%, when you add the two of us together, it's 5%. That means the other 95% of the nation is not us. The other 95% of the nation either disapproves, disagrees, couldn't, wouldn't, whatever the case may be. We are different than the other 95% of the nation. That being said, I can certainly understand and appreciate how some parents in the public school system would be opposed to veterans becoming teachers. I'm not saying I agree. I'm saying I can understand. I'm saying I can wrap my head around it. I can certainly appreciate where some parents who are potentially very anti-war, very anti-military, or very concerned with some of the negative stereotypes that may be well deserved by veterans, okay, but nonetheless, I can understand if there's a natural knee-jerk reaction to oppose veterans in the school system teaching kids. the potential risk of socio-political agenda, the potential risk of indoctrination, whatever the case may be, I understand. I get that. So I use that example to say this. Can you also equally appreciate how if you're in a minority category, and I don't mean skin color, I mean if right now, let's say being gay, lesbian, bi, or trans is considered minority, is considered marginalized, all right? Whatever the case may be. Can you at least see, can you put yourself in the shoes of others and see how in the public school atmosphere, how that could be a source of caution for parents who disagree because they're concerned about you pushing a socio-political agenda, you attempting to indoctrinate their children at a very, very young age where they're not yet of the mindset to make certain distinctions, okay? It's my opinion that high school age kids can understand certain things and make certain distinctions, although they're still very influential. I mean, for crying out loud, college kids are belligerently influential. So I just pose that argument. I'm not saying you're a bad person. I'm not saying you don't deserve to exist. But just like my wife has not tried to apply for teaching jobs or whatnot in private schools that are very, very heavy on religion, okay, because she's not religious and she doesn't want to be one of those who conflicts or opposes the religious agenda and ideology of that school. Can you see where maybe, just maybe, one adaptation we might need to make is this? I don't want to call it fringe and make it sound negative, but if there's a concept or idea, all right, like the gay, lesbian, bi, trans, whatever, if you don't feel as though you're being adequately served in the public school atmosphere, then perhaps consider starting a private school or at least soliciting the county. And I wonder, I'd be very curious if Governor DeSantis would be open to the option of, okay, you know what, in every county, we'll try to create an option where if this is your thing, you have the freedom of religion, regardless of how preposterous that religion may be in the eyes of others, you have that freedom to include raising your children that way. Therefore, I don't see why this stuff shouldn't be in the same vein as religion. Okay? If you're gay, lesbian, bisexual, trans, whatever, it shouldn't be treated any differently than religion. You should be free and clear to think, believe, act upon it, live your life in that way, in which case maybe you should be allowed to create your own schools where if you want to send your kids there, you should be able to make that choice. The counter argument I'm well prepared for is, what if you can't afford to? I don't know. I don't have a response. But I only ask this. I'd like to hear your feedback on the subject. And like I said before, can you at least appreciate where if you're somebody who might find yourself opposed to somebody like me being an elementary school teacher, okay, if you think there's a high risk of me being, pushing a pro-military agenda and all things that are stereotypically considered pro-military, if you think there's a high risk of that and you'd be adverse to me being an elementary school teacher, then can you at least appreciate how other parents could be adverse to lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans teachers in the public school atmosphere potentially pushing their own socio-political agenda, narrative, indoctrination, etc. If neither of those examples apply, we'll find another example. But if you can compare and contrast that, and that's why I always make that distinction. It's the third decade of the 21st century, and this is what we're talking about. Okay? As much as I'd love to delve into other topics, I think I think to some degree they're being overdone. The whole Elon Musk thing and whatnot. Who knows? Maybe I will make a third video and talk about hypocrisy. But I feel like I've made that video numerous times over, and it's in my back catalog. But then I feel like I'd be shamelessly plugging my back catalog, and I don't think anybody who's currently watching my channel wants to go back and look at the back catalog. So with that being said, you know the deal. I don't care if you like it, dislike it. I don't care if you subscribe. I don't care if you hit the notification bell. I care to hear from you. So please leave a comment. And if you do, you're awesome.